Yeah. And in these days, Hare Krishna, in these days, and these times, at least in the Bhagavatam, kings were called Raj Rishi. Raj means king and Rishi means saint. So you'll find in the history of India, if you go back far enough, that the kings were not just kings, but they were saints also. And young boys used to go and live with their spiritual master. It's called Gurukula, and they would study. These are usually the Brahmin boys, but the Kshatriyas are the sons of kings. They would also go, so they had the same education. So they knew all the scriptures, and they generally you'd find their characteristics, their qualities were just like saints. Although they had different duties, so they had to punish somebody, this and that. But in terms of their personal characteristics, they were just like saints. So Prithu is a saint. And 4 Kumars are saints, so we're going to see what the saints had to say. You know that song, When the Saints Come Marching In? You don't have that? Yeah, so this is, I would like to be in that number.
Ice hockey.
Like football.
Yeah.
So this must be a spiritual song, though, initially. Yeah. Anyway, the saints are marching in. This is 4th canto, chapter 22, text 27. Dag dashayo mukta samasta tad kuno. Naivat mano bahir antar bichashte. Parat manor yad vyavadhanam purastat. Swapne jata purushas tad vinashe. Now, one of the most interesting things in the Bhagavatam is that you have these beautiful verses spoken in Sanskrit. And many of those verses were not written and edited and re-edited and proofread and re-edited. They were just spoken. And they came out perfectly. That was the nature of people in former times. Their intelligence was such that they could say it perfectly in perfect Sanskrit, and there'd be no need to edit. And not only could they say it perfectly, but what they said was profound. So, I don't know who's speaking here, but it might just, some of it is just the story being told, but even the person who's telling the story is speaking in perfect Sanskrit. So once it was spoken, it was written down, it wasn't edited, it was all perfect. So the translation. When a person becomes devoid of all material desires and liberated from all material qualities, he transcends distinction between actions executed externally and internally. At that time, the difference between the soul and the supersoul, which was existing before self-realization, is annihilated. When a dream is over, there is no longer a distinction between the dream and the dreamer. So it'll be explained. If you didn't understand anything, that's fine. You will understand now. Whenever you don't understand something that's written in these books, just go to what you understand, because that's probably what it means. It's just, this Sanskrit to English, and sometimes it doesn't work with the way we normally think and talk. Anyway, it'll be explained in the purport. As described by Srila Rupa Goswami, Anyabi Lashita Shunyam, one must be devoid of all material desires. When a person becomes devoid of all material desires, there is no longer need for speculative knowledge or fruitive activities. That, in other words, you become enlightened, so you know what's what, so you don't have to guess anymore. And fruitive activities means you're trying to create good karma, but once you're satisfied spiritually, you're not interested, you don't care about creating good karma. If you have good karma, you have to take birth again to get the result of your karma. Did you know that? You want to clean it? Everybody wants, like I want to create good karma, but so when you die, you have all this good karma, then you get to come back to get the result of that good karma. And if you have no karma, you don't come back. Right? Just like when you apply, you apply for your driver's license, then they'll look and see if you have any outstanding tickets. And unless you pay, you won't get it. So karma's like that. Even if it's good karma, and we think, I have to come back because I have bad karma. Even if it's good karma, you have to come back. Interesting, right? Okay, now I'm going to read without my glasses. Okay, when a person becomes devoid of all material desires, there's no longer need for speculative knowledge. Wow. Perfect. In that condition, it is to be understood that one is free from the material body. The example is already given above. A coconut which is dry is loosened from its outward husk. This is the stage of liberation, Coconut is big, the big green shell, and I don't know if you know this, but it's big, green, thick. Then the inside is the brown coconut. Right? You've seen? No? Yeah. So, the example is coconut which is dry is loosened from the outward husk. This is the stage, in other words, the outward husk is the body and the inward husk is the soul. And so when you're self-realized, you're like a coconut. You realize you're the coconut inside, not the shell. Okay, this is the stage of liberation as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.10.16. Mukti, liberation, means swarupena vyastiti, being situated in one's own constitutional position. All material desires are present as long as one is in the bodily concept of life. But when one realizes that he is an eternal servant of Krishna, his desires are no longer material. The devotee acts in this consciousness. In other words, when material desires in connection with the body are finished, one is actually liberated. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have good news for you. You're not the body. So, you know why that's good news? Because you don't die when your body dies. Now, another very interesting thing that Prabhupada says is that if you think in terms of the soul, that I'm soul, then you'll think, I don't need a body. My body needs me. Because my body can't live without me. But we always, we think, I need a body. Soul doesn't need a body. The body needs a soul. Isn't that interesting? Like if we don't have a body, we still exist. But the body can't exist without us. But we exist without the body. So then, you say, why do we need a body? Well, we need a body to fulfill material desires. And if we don't have material desires, you don't need a body. That's why the body's here. That's what liberation means. When you no longer have material desire, you no longer need a material body. So the body's just a vehicle to fulfill those desires. That's why we have it. Hare Krishna. In other words, when the material desires in connection with the body are finished, one is actually liberated. When one is liberated from the material qualities, he does not do anything for his personal sense gratification. At that time, all activities performed by him are absolute. In the conditioned state, there are two kinds of activities. One acts on behalf of the body, and at the same time he acts to become liberated. The devotee, when he is completely free from all material desires or all material qualities, transcends the duality of action for the body and the soul. Then the bodily concept of life is completely over. When one is completely fixed in the service of the Lord, he is liberated in any condition of life. He is called Jivan Mukta. There's a big yoga studio in New York called Jivan Mukti. You know about that? It's like one of the biggest studios in New York. Yeah. Jivan means living entity, Mukti means liberated. He is called Jivan Mukti, liberated even within the body. In such a liberated condition, there is no distinction between actions for sense gratification and actions for liberation. In other words, what Prabhupada's saying is, you can realize you're not the body and make a distinction between the body and the soul, but a devotee uses the body in Krishna's service, so the body is basically now spiritualized, so there's no duality. Okay, I'm a spirit soul, and I have a body, and the body has all kinds of desires. So there's a duality there. The body's, I'm thinking about myself, the soul is pure, it's connected to Krishna. There are two different categories. But when a person is more advanced, then the body's just used in service, so there's no duality. Everything is good. Hare Krishna. Yes. When one is liberated from the desire for sense gratification, he has no longer to suffer the reactions of lamentation or illusion. Activities performed by the karmis and jnanis are subject to lamentation and illusion, but a self-realized, liberated person acting only for the Supreme Personality of Godhead experiences none of these. This is the stage of oneness, or merging into the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This means that the individual soul, while keeping his individuality, no longer has separate interest. There's this beautiful prayer. It's one of the meanings of the holy name, and a devotee is praying, Krishna, please bring my heart to your heart. So sometimes, you say, make our hearts one. So what does that mean? The desire. Your desire, my desire, it's the same. So the devotee prays, Krishna, bring my heart closer to your heart. Make my desire your desire. What happened? That's a beautiful meditation. So that's what's described here. The individual soul, while keeping his individuality, no longer has separate interest. He is fully in the service of the Lord, and he has nothing to do for his personal sense gratification. Therefore, he sees only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and not himself. His personal interest completely perishes. When a person comes out of a dream, the dream vanishes. While dreaming, let's go back. So, one day I was in the airport, and I was late, and the security line was long. I'm like, oh, that happened to you? Yeah. Probably happens to everybody at some point. And so, at that point, all we're thinking about is, am I going to make my plane or not, right? And if I don't make my plane, what happens? Are they going to make me buy another ticket? Is there another flight? Right? So, at that point, we're pretty absorbed in me and what's going to happen to me, right? And we're not thinking about anyone else in the airport except that they're in the way of me. Isn't it? More or less like, all these people are in my way because I need to get through. That happened to me at one airport, and I told her I was late for a flight, and she was like, go in the back of the line. So all the people in front of me are obstacles to fulfilling my desire. So that's pretty much normal, right? Or that's how we were. This is how we are. That's how we've always been. And sometimes if someone takes advantage of you, your parents will say, don't let them take advantage of you, right? Look out for yourself, take care of yourself. You know? So, sometimes, of course, that's good advice, but sometimes it's unnecessary advice. Sometimes it's okay that someone got ahead of us, right? It's not like the end of the world, right? So we're, pretty much conditioned that, here's the universe and we're in the middle. And everything in the universe should kind of fulfill our needs, right? And as a result of that, as Krishna says, those needs, they'll never be perfectly fulfilled, because for every desire that's fulfilled, there pops up another one. And so it just goes on perpetually. One thing that's really interesting is that in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a verse in the 6th chapter about yoga, the yogis who realize that they're not the body. And then the verse says that once they realize that, they think, well, they realize they're not the body, but they also realize the Supersoul, Krishna, in their heart. So they can see Krishna in their heart. That's their meditation, all that austerity meditation, how they come. Their mind is totally pacified, and they're seeing Krishna in the heart, and they're seeing themselves, the soul and the Supersoul. And then the verse says, once they achieve this, they think, that's it. There's nothing better. So obviously, when they achieve that state, material desires, selfish desires, they're not there. They don't need to satisfy themselves, because they're way beyond satisfaction. It's like not even something we can conceive of. It's a beautiful verse. Once having achieved this, they think there is nothing greater to be gained. Right? So at that state, what do you want at that state? If you've got the best, what do you want? So everything on the material level seems quite, for us also, we understand the temporary nature of it, but for them, it's a little different, because they're is emerged in transcendental bliss. So at that point, it's like nothing can compare. Yeah, that's what I want to say. It's not like you think, well, if somebody's self-realized, don't they see that something's beautiful? I'd say, yeah, they will. But they're not thinking they're the center of the universe anymore. If I see something beautiful and I think I'm the center, the next thought is, how do I enjoy it? Right? What do we do to enjoy it? That looks nice. Let's go there and enjoy it. Why do we think that way? Because we're not self-realized. Since if we were self-realized, we wouldn't think we wouldn't have a need to enjoy that, because we'd be already up here, right? Like, for example, this is a weird example, but I think it, although weird, I think it's a good one. So, before I became a devotee, maybe all of you had this experience, we would get high. So high means you're here and you smoke something or take some pill and you go up and you call that, now I'm high. And then you come back down after it wears off, right? So when we became devotees, then we were up here. So if we took the same drug, we would go down. We wouldn't go high, we would go low, because we're already higher. So a self-realized soul is like that. Like, we'll see something beautiful and enjoyable, quote unquote, but what the happiness they're experiencing is such that for them they would come down. Like there's a verse, Ramante, Jogi no Anante, that means the yogis are experiencing unlimited pleasure. So, can you relate to unlimited pleasure? No, it's not. It's not, because it's not material, right? So from their perspective, material pleasure is like, I'll be coming way down to enjoy that. But if you're down here, then it's up. If you're up here, then it's down. Anyway, it's conceptual for us until you experience it. But if you have a little spiritual experience, a little ecstasy from kirtan, from chanting, from doing service, and multiply it more in your imagination than you'd understand. Like, why would you want anything else? Because you're up there.
When it's not consistent.
Yeah.
You try to cling to it.
Yeah. It's not going to be consistent until you're fully self-realized. It's going to be a bit yo-yo-ish. So therefore we have spiritual practice to stabilize it. Because if we just are left to our own devices, it's kind of like the lottery. Some days you get mercy just for no reason. But so that you have to create a reason to get mercy. So you do spiritual practice, stabilizes it. But the nature of the world is that there's different influences that affect us. But a good example is if you have spiritual practice, then you're on a boat. And so the ocean is, there's waves, it's rough. You feel it, but the boat's going. So just stay on the boat. And sometimes the ocean is calm, sometimes it's not. But if you're on the boat, you feel it, but you won't get affected. There's a difference between being affected, feeling it, and being affected and feeling it and not being affected. It's like you can have a pain in your knee, but it doesn't mean you can't walk. And being affected would mean I can't walk. I'm giving into the pain. I had a very interesting experience like this. A group of us were going to India, and at that time I think we had to get cholera vaccinations or yellow fever or something. And it makes you a little sick for like a day. So it was really interesting because everybody was like sick, more or less the same. And then we could see everyone's reaction to that same sickness. And I'm like, I can't do anything. And someone else is like, no, I'm just going to do service all day, tolerate it. So it was really interesting to see how the same level of discomfort was affecting people. So some people like, I can't do anything. And some people like, yeah, let's just continue what we normally do, our normal service. So that's what it's like. The world's pushing you around, and for a devotee, at least they have a center with Krishna, and so they feel it. Yeah, I have a headache, I have body ache, like that, but I just keep going. And someone else says, I have to go to sleep. So without the spiritual practice, then you're really pushed around. And with the spiritual practice, you'll feel it sometimes you won't. But you keep going. And if you don't keep going, then you'll get pulled more. Right? That's the nature of this world, is to pull us. And Krishna says, we're pulled by attraction and repulsion. And I want to do this. What about that? No, I don't want to do that. You don't want to do that? No, I don't want to do that. That's pretty much how our life is, if you think about it. We gravitate towards what we like, and we move away from what we don't like. And Krishna says, be in the middle. Don't go up, don't go down. Because if you're going to go up and down, you'll never be liberated. You'll always be influenced and pulled by this world. So he tells Arjuna, don't be influenced, be steady. And then you're in the perfect position to practice spiritual life, which is really, or Krishna is just saying, be tolerant. Because you're going to go up and down. I mean, the influence to bring you up and down will be there. And Krishna is saying, tolerate it. And that's why we have a t-shirt that says, tolerate happiness. Because nobody understands why you would tolerate happiness. And the answer is for the same reason you would tolerate distress, because it throws you off your game. To the degree that we are overwhelmed by happiness, to that degree we'll be overwhelmed by distress. So Krishna says, just don't go up, don't go down. It's very interesting, right? Because who would think, why would you tolerate happiness? Like, go for it. Yeah, but then when you don't have that happiness, you become depressed. Whereas, like, it's Krishna's above happiness and distress, success or failure. He's beyond that. But we're not beyond that, so Krishna says, just tolerate it, and by tolerating it, you'll eventually get beyond it. The middle path, as the Buddhists say. So, That's the answer to, well, I'm not always transcendental, but you have to act kind of like you are, until you are. And if you don't, then you'll get pushed around. And so, life will push us around, or we'll push life around. It's, that's a coaching principle, right? But it's more so in the spiritual sense, because it'll really push us around. Samsara, birth and death, the cycle, again and again. It'll really get pushed around. And so, it's kind of like breaking an addiction. It's really difficult because we're addicted to it. But the definition of addiction is something you can't give up that's destroying you. So it's the
addiction, happiness.
Sense gratification, sensual, whatever your flavor of gratification is, that whatever. Now, we don't say you give up everything, but there's certain things that are just detrimental to spiritual life, and certain things that we can engage. And then it's for Krishna. It's not. I'm not making everything about me, because that's all I've been doing forever, is making everything about me, which is why I'm still here. And I'm looking for love, and I never find it, because it exists in that relationship. So I'm always empty.
So where is the balance between not seeing me as the center of the universe, but also not, like a lot of devotees you see, they're just giving everything and just kind of do too much. It
Yeah,
feels like.
yeah. The balance between, well,
Seva and
yeah. Okay. There's two things that are going on. One is we have to act according to our realization. So giving too much means, like, okay, I'm going to decide today, this week, I'm just going to eat once. I'm only going to eat one meal this week. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, so if I were self-realized, it wouldn't be a problem. And I'm only going to sleep 2 hours. If I were self-realized, okay, I'll do that. I could do it. And it wouldn't really affect me. But if I try to do that now, I'll just be falling asleep in class. I'd be giving the class but falling asleep, or my mind wouldn't. I wouldn't be able to give the class. I'd be too tired. So the principle is, I would like to be able to control my eating and sleeping as much as possible. But I have to do it according to what would be sustainable. So maybe before I was a devotee, oh my God, how much did I sleep? More than I needed, definitely. Yeah, I'm probably 8 hours, which is not uncommon or bad. But when I became a devotee, it was sleeping 5 hours. I went from 8 to 5. That was too little. So I had to, find. Then we did 6. 6 was better. If I slept 5, then when I sat down, count to 3 and I would fall asleep, literally. It's not a joke. 3 seconds. If I slept 6 hours, you'd give me 3 minutes. If I slept 7 hours, I'd be okay. So, this is I don't know if it's a dilemma, but it's just a reality that I would like to be up here, but my reality is here. And so when you see a devotee burning out, it's just they have an ambition to be here, but their reality is here, and they don't want to. They don't like the reality. They haven't, like you said, they haven't accepted the reality. So and they're inspired to be up here, but you'll always come back to your reality. So I sleep 5 hours, and then I'll sleep 2 hours in Bhagavatam class because I can't stay awake. I probably need 7 hours, right? I eat 1 apple and 3 chickpeas for breakfast, and the time between breakfast and lunch, all I'm thinking about is lunch because I'm hungry. So I have to eat enough so that I'm not thinking about eating. Right? I have to sleep enough so I'm not thinking about sleeping. I have to eating, sleeping, mating, defending. These are the 4 propensities of material life. I have to do them enough so I can stop thinking about them. That's the idea. So then I focus on my service. Material consciousness means I do them solely for my pleasure. So Sunday, your day off, let's sleep more, as much as possible, because that's considered enjoyable. For a devotee, he's thinking, if I sleep too much, then I could have been chanting or could have been doing so many things. But so you find where's your, what do you need? I need about this much. Okay, that's good. Then you're still being spiritual because you're not catering into the body, even though maybe you need to eat more, sleep more, this more, that more. But you're just doing enough so that you can be properly situated, but it's not based on, this is what I want to do and this is going to make me happy, because you know that's not going to make you happy if you sleep more. Or eat more, or, yes.
So kind of just finding where you're at,
Yeah,
basic functioning.
Yeah.
And then just doing that and not anymore.
Yeah. And gradually you can do more. The best word is sustainability, as applied to spiritual practice. Because wherever that point is that you can sustain, if you're lower than that, you'll feel bad. Because I can really do this, right? You'll always, there'll be some intuition, some guilt, something that says, you can be here, you don't have to be here, right? And if you go more, it'll become obvious you can't sustain it because you'll always come back to this. So I sleep 5 hours, the next day 9 hours because I need 7 and I'm 4 hours. This happens to me all the time when I travel. I don't always get enough sleep, and then I come home, and that first day home was like, I'm out. And one time I slept so much I couldn't believe I never even slept that much in my life. It was like I fell asleep like 6 at night, and got up like 6 the next morning, and it's like generally impossible for me. Like more than 7.5, I'll just be awake maximum, and usually earlier. And so that's, I think everyone has that experience. So you'll tend to always come back to what you need, and that's why Krishna says in the 6th chapter, don't eat too much, eat too little. Don't sleep too much, don't sleep too little. Just find your spot. That's the verse, to find your spot. And your spot's going to change as you advance. And so you have the problem is, and this is such an interesting problem, you have two things, what you can do and what you want to do. And so we will tend to we think, this would be really good if I could do this, and we try to do it, but maybe we can't, and then we come back, or we come back here, and then we have to, so better than being a yo-yo, it's better to stay. So we have to use what we want to do, like to inspire us, but not leave the stability. And so that way we could gradually go up. But you can't be what you're not. You can't do what you're not. At the same time, then you're saying, but Prabhu, there's certain things we have to do. And the answer is, yes, there are. That maybe we don't naturally do, but we need them to create a foundation for our spiritual life. So we do them, because without that, we're just crashing. There's nothing to catch us. So some things are more not natural. Well, so many things when you begin spiritual practice they're natural, but they don't feel that way because we're not used to it. But if we don't do them, then we don't have a good foundation to build on. And then we're just kind of wandering spiritually, materially, and kind of going in circles. So we also know that if I have a desire, and that desire is unhealthy, I either have to be able to give it up or figure out how I can use it for Krishna. But often our intelligence will understand, I have this desire and it's causing me pain. And I don't even know if I could fulfill it. Even if I did fulfill it, I don't even know if that would be fulfilled if I fulfill it. And there's a lot of desires like that. So, we have to confront that and say, this is just, it's a waste of energy, because even if I get it, it's like, so what? I'm not any better off than I was, or maybe I'm worse off. Tornado.
We're not in America. There's no such thing.
You don't have them here. Hurricanes? No? Earthquakes? Earthquakes?
Not
Nothing.
really, no.
No disasters in Europe.
Well,
Only World War II. Yeah, that was pretty bad. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Jai. Hare Bol. So now, one of my favorite verses in the Gita. It's such a basic verse. It's so powerful. The nature of the mind is that the mind is like a script writer. So the mind writes a script. If you do this, this, and this, you will get this, and this will make you happy, right? And so we draw the drama, and then engage as the main actor in the drama. And the mind saying, you will be happy if you do this. And Krishna says, this is really important to understand, Krishna says, when we pursue material desire, it creates another material desire. So that's the problem. So what we're learning is fulfill material desires so it won't create another one. But if you just do it materially, it just keeps creating them. So there's no limit. Which is one of the reasons a lot of people take the spiritual life, because they understand that. It's like it's not ending. I can't find the end of it. I'm not satisfied. So, but there is a way to satisfy material desire if it's used in Krishna service, because this is not about me anymore. So I like to do blank. If I just become a famous blank, I'll be happy. No, you won't be happy, because when you become a famous blank, you'll realize there's somebody more famous than you, and you'll still be unhappy. But if I think, I like to do this, if I do this for Krishna, it's a totally different consciousness, because now Krishna is the goal of it. It's not me becoming famous. It's glorifying Krishna, using the same I want. I want to cook. I love to cook. I'll cook for Krishna. We'll do feasts. We'll invite people. Everybody's happy. Krishna's happy. I'm happy. I just cook and eat. I just get fat and sick. Okay, I like to cook. It's fun. But, there's something missing there because it's not for Krishna. So that's why Krishna says, there will be an endless cycle of desire, fulfillment, because every time you try to fulfill it personally, it creates another one, and there will be no end. I think Krishna says hundreds and thousands of desires. Like you might think, I don't have that many desires. Yeah. If I gave you €1,000,000 right now, you would find you have more desires than you think. Right? Now I can do this. Now I can do it. Hey, what do you want to do? Right? Now we can buy a van and we can travel. We don't have to work. So, isn't it interesting? Right? That Krishna is saying, we have hundreds and millions of desires. Like, how many of those could we satisfy? And every time we satisfy one, it's going to create another one. How do we get on this topic? You asked it. You made it. Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah. So then we have this problem. When you come to spiritual life, most people come to spiritual life because they understand this, and they understand it more as they progress because they have experience. Oh, I'm doing this service. It wasn't about me at all, and I'm more satisfied than when I tried to do it for myself. So we have that experience. And then we have the problem that the mind says, well, why don't you shoot for this? Because this is better than this. And this, I'm like, yeah, I'm this is where I'm at, but it's not like a great place. I'd rather be here. So I'm going to shoot for here, but I'm not at here. And so we have to understand the difference between what the intelligence is saying is the best thing and where we're at. Because sometimes we just forget where we're at and we go like, this is really good. We should do this. This right here, he did it in the Bhagavatam, He renounced everything, He only ate once a week. He only slept once a week. Yeah, that would be amazing if I could do that. Let me try. So the intelligence is attracted and it forgets where we're at. It's like at my age, I can't physically do what I did when I was younger, but sometimes I want to, because it's the same mind, just the body's older. So it's like, yeah, let's go do it. And I do it. Like, oh, I haven't done this in like 20 years, and then, I pull a muscle or something, or I get tired more easily. So it's something like that, like the intelligence is like it's shooting. Let's do this. So it's not bad as long as you know where you're at. It's just bad when you forget where you're at, because you'll always come back down, and it doesn't work, right? So it's good. Yeah, I want to be up here. Let's go for it when we have realization. So it's, you have to have realization. At the same time, you can't just bottom out and say, well, I'm really, really down here. That's just natural for me. I sleep 12 hours, I got to smoke a little marijuana just to, face the world. And, so we go, no, that's not working. So we have to bring it up to a standard as a platform that I can build my spiritual life on. So there's got to be some minimum, so-called artificial, but, but we're chanting and we get strength, we can do it. And then I build from there. Then everything is good. And then we all have, by nature, we have tendencies, either psychological or physiological. Well, not either. We have both. So every body is naturally attracted to do something, just like last night. You were saying, I feel so gratified when I counsel people, right? And I help them. I coach them and I help them. And you will probably find some people who will say I don't want to do that. That doesn't inspire me. But what would inspire me is to organize a coaching business, and manage it. That's what I'd like to do. You do the coaching, I'll manage it. I love to manage things. I love to make things happen.
You can do it.
I don't love to make things happen. I love to coach. Yeah. Let other people make things happen. But, that's what you would love, right? Yeah. Meet someone who wants to make it happen. So that's a nature. And everybody has a nature, and it's built in, and it's not good or bad, it's just is. So we all, just by existing, we can see what our nature is. We gravitate towards certain things and we move away from certain things. So if I say, Sandy, it's time, we got this big festival, you're going to be in charge and manage every detail. And you're like, I'm not really into details, I'm into people. No, you have to manage. And so you're like, and you just go to sleep. It's, I can't do this. And we go, Veda, can you manage? Yeah, I love it. And she's like, the opposite. I don't know if you are, but we'll use the example. And she's like, yeah. And she's sleeping 3 hours a night and organizing, and she's excited. It's just the nature. And so we know what our nature is. So nature is not bad at all. It's not good or bad. It just is. We all have one, right? You like to do art, or you like to do coaching also, right? And other things. You like to cook, or you like to do music. And, you ever see someone say, I want to be a cook, and you don't like to cook, and you're like, why would you want to be a cook? I hate cooking. And I'm like, I just want to cook. Because if you're a cook, that's 8 hours a day you're cooking, right? So whatever your nature is, 8 hours a day is yeah, I'd love to do that. Isn't it? Could you do art 8 hours a day? Of course, she could. No problem, right? Yeah, artists they could go beyond 8 hours a day. It's their nature. And if we say, Veda, we need you to draw 8 hours a day, she's like, right? I can't. I don't even know how to draw. I can draw like a 6-year-old. So why would I want to draw all day like a 6-year-old? It would be frustrating, right? Yeah, I don't know if Krishna would accept my offering. Oh, with love, yeah. My stick figures. So the point is, I have a nature, it's not going to go away. So what am I going to do with it? So then I have to figure out, how could I connect this to Krishna? It's easy if you're an artist, you just paint pictures of Krishna, or paint philosophy of Krishna, or if you like to sing, that's easy, do kirtan, or sing songs about Krishna bhajan. So we wouldn't call that a material desire. We would distinguish as that. That's not a material desire. That's my nature, right? So it's just I can't stop doing it. So we don't want to try to renounce our nature, because then we'll go crazy. Guaranteed, you'll kill somebody if you do that eventually, because you have to do it. That's like. It's like my daughter loves to dance, and she's very happy when she dances. And and if she teaches dance, she learns dance, she dances at Rath Yatra. She's always been that way. It's like I have videos of her when she's like 8 years old, and it's raining, and she's out. It's Florida, and she's out dancing in the rain, making up her own quasi Bharatanatyam. I mean, a lot of girls are like that. But some have to do it. It's like if they don't, they'll get depressed. It's like so. A lot when you have a nature, sometimes it's that nature is such that if you don't do it, you just like you actually get depressed or frustrated. You're just something's wrong, right? That's why people drink so much, because they're working in careers that have nothing to do with their nature. So the only way they can cope is through beer or. The weekends, just doing something crazy to forget. So, material desire means I'm in the center. Nature means this is just what I do. How can I do that for Krishna? Right? So like you, when you're coaching, if there's a little opening and you see, I could put some spiritual knowledge in that opening because I see they're ready. And if they, wow, I never thought that. That's so beautiful. I love that. Can you tell me more? You're like, whoa. So now that coaching has been used. Another thing, because I coach, so I think about this a lot, that I tell people, say, I can coach you and help you achieve your goals, but it's not going to make you happy. Once you achieve your goals, you're going to be like, okay, what's next? So I'll help you achieve your goals, but I want you to come back after you achieve them and ask me, what now? What's next? Because this isn't going to be it, because you're a spiritual being. So, you can do that with the right people. And they'll be like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. And they'll come back and say, you were right. Of course, everyone who achieves their goals is like, oh, is this it? Is this all it is? It's like climbing on top of the mountain. I go, it's really beautiful up there, beautiful view, and you go up and it's like, I spent the whole day climbing this mountain for this. It's not that great. So, you think how I could do it for Krishna. So you think. And then now you're connected, and then it becomes devotional service. Now, you still have material desire, because you have a material body and a material mind, which is conditioned for millions of years. So you think, okay, if I don't fulfill that material desire, I'm going to kill somebody. Seriously, like if you don't you'll kill them, or you'll kill them with your tongue, or in some way, isn't it? You ever get frustrated and kill someone with your tongue? Yeah. So we'll kill with our tongue. So I have material desire. I'm not a pure devotee, so I have material desire. So how can I minimize those desires so it doesn't become an obstacle? And how can I, if I have, like, a lot of devotees have these really big, beautiful homes, because they're like, the husband and wife are working like for, Google or something, or Microsoft. So they have, they have enough money to, they're making whatever, $300,000 a year or something. So they can afford it, and because they have it, and the wife says, I really like a nice home. And the husband's like, yeah, but, we don't need it. And so she says, but I really want it. So now what do? You have this desire. Because I grew up in this little shack in a village in India, and I always dreamed about a big home. So now I have the money, I can do it. And the husband says, okay, well, let's do it, but if you want a big home, that means we can have 100 people in our house, and say, then every month we'll do a program. And she's like, yeah, okay, perfect. So now I have I can connect the big house. It's like I don't just have a big house just because it's for me, which really is why I want it, but because I'm a devotee, I have to think, well, I have to use it. I can't just... So we do programs every month. We have 100 people come. We have all this money, so we can feed them prasadam, we give them gifts. It's great, right? So now I figured how to use that desire I have for service. And then you can just think of anything like that. How can I use that for Krishna? Then you're safe, because it's not about you anymore. Even though it's about what you like to do, the object is now Krishna. So it's different than just doing it. Just the big house without Krishna. Now it's the big house with Krishna. And someday they'll renounce and get the little house because they fulfilled that desire. And if they didn't get the big house, they'd never be able to renounce to get the little house because they'd always be thinking, I never had a big house. Right? Isn't it? So Prabhupada gave the example. There's a sweet. Maybe I should eat it. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should eat it. It's not really good for me, but it looks good. It smells good. I really like sweets, but I shouldn't really take sugar, and you're going back and forth. The Prabhupada said, then you finally take it and you eat it, and after you eat it, you think, I shouldn't have eaten that. So it's something like that. Like there's no way I'm not going to eat it, and the only way I'm going to renounce it is to eat it and realize, I didn't really need to eat it. Yeah. So I have this desire, I fulfill it, and eventually when I'm older, I feel, okay, that was the only way I can fulfill it. I couldn't transcend it. I wasn't evolved enough. I wasn't advanced enough to transcend it. But over time, because I didn't deny it and I could use it so it wouldn't destroy me, over time I'm fulfilled. And then when I'm older, it's like, okay, I've had it. I don't need it. If you notice people, grandparents, they tend to be renounced by nature because the kids and grandkids, they just take it. Here, I have this. You want it? Come to my house. Take whatever you want. It's like they don't care anymore. They've had it. If they never had it, it would be more difficult to do that, right? Let's say they just got everything when they were 75. That would be hard to just say, take everything, because they never had it. So that's sustainability. And then from there, you move up. Slowly, slowly, slowly. It's not a problem. And you have this goal in your head. Yeah, I want to be up here. And someday, gradually you'll get there. But you can't, okay, I'm going to say something that's going to sound stupid, but it's not. You can't get there before you get there. If you know what I mean. You can't, it's like, you can't lift 100 kgs before you can lift 100 kgs. You have to start with 25, right? And then go to 35, and you work your way up. My goal is I want to press 100 kgs. Yeah, all right, that's fine, but you can't do it now. You don't have the strength. It's like that. We didn't finish reading, did we? Okay. This means that the individual soul, while keeping his individuality, no longer has separate interest. He is fully in the service of the Lord, and he has nothing to do for his personal sense gratification. Therefore, he sees only the Supreme Personality of Godhead and not himself. His personal interest completely perishes. When a person comes out of a dream, the dream vanishes. While dreaming, a person may consider himself a king and see the royal paraphernalia, his soldiers, etc. But when the dream is over, he does not see anything beyond himself. Similarly, a liberated person understands that he is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, acting in accordance with the desire of the Supreme Lord. And as such, there is no distinction between himself and the Supreme Lord, although both of them retain their individuality. In other words, when you reach a certain platform of Krishna consciousness, there's no distinction between what Krishna wants and you want. It's just that's how you are. You don't have separate interests. So you're one, but you're different. But You know, that's what happens when you love somebody, right? When you love someone, what do you think about? What they want. And it makes you happy to fulfill what they want, right? If you love somebody, you can't be happy if they're not happy. Correct? TK. Nitya nityanam chetanas chetananam. This is the perfect conception of oneness in relation to the Supreme Soul. Nitya nityanam means of all the eternal living entities, there's one who's supremely eternal. We're eternal, Krishna's eternal, but he's more eternal in the sense that we're energy, he's energetic. He created us. We're eternal, but he created us. Go figure that one out. But we're dependent. Hare Krishna. Any questions, comments, arguments, doubts? Let's read the verse again. Maybe you'll understand the verse now, because I don't think anybody understood the verse when we read it. Not much. When a person becomes devoid of all material desires and liberated from all material qualities, he transcends distinctions between actions executed externally and internally, body and soul. At that time, the difference between the soul and the super soul, which was existing before self-realization, is annihilated. In other words, that my desire is different than his desire. When a dream is over, there's no longer a distinction between the dream and the dreamer. So, we could say, as devotees, our goal is to become one with Krishna in terms of desire, so that we perfectly represent him, his desire. Yes. So, Srila Prabhupada, sometimes we would see Srila Prabhupada, from what we could tell, was experiencing, you can see from his pictures also, just experiencing Krishna consciousness very deeply, just by the way he smiles, because nobody smiles like that. You ever seen a picture of Prabhupada and thought, I've never seen anybody smile like that? So we can understand that if you're having some realization of Krishna, that you would smile like that. Right? It's like very, very deep. And so we got to see that all the time. And by seeing that all the time, it was natural that we would think, yes, Krishna consciousness is what I want. Krishna consciousness will make me happy. This is where all the bliss in life is in Krishna consciousness, because we could see it in Prabhupada. There was no comparison. So, when you have the association of persons who are experiencing Krishna consciousness and you can see it and feel it, it makes it easier for you. And if you reflect back on your life and say, well, I've done so many things in my life and I'm still kind of like here, even though this was an amazing experience, but I always come to here, always come back. And Prabhupada was always here, and here, and here, and here. There was no coming back. So that's how we have to think. That's how our intelligence has to work. But sometimes the only thing we have for our spiritual strength is our intelligence, because our feeling could be completely, I want this, I want to do this, I don't care, I know it's bad for me, but I just want to do it. Never felt like that? Yeah. So sometimes our intelligence is the only thing that'll save us. But where are the devotees at who can restrain themselves? What are they experiencing, right? Are they happy? Yes. Are they ecstatic? Yes. Is this going to make me happy? No. I've done it a million times before. Why am I doing it again? So sometimes we just have to go through that process, and our intelligence is the only thing, or we are only friend in that situation. Sometimes our determination is not enough. We need some infusion of discrimination. And one of the best ways that I have found to do that is just when you're in that situation, play it out, play the movie out to the end and see where it takes you. Because when you play the movie out, then you'll realize, well, I don't think I want to do that because I see where it's going to go. In the moment when the mind gets fixed and attached, it loses sight of future consequences. Right? And as soon as you understand future consequences, it puts things in perspective. Like sometimes you'll find some woman, she has 3 kids, great husband, everything's good, and she's madly in love with some rock star, and she would leave her whole family. If he would say, let's go, she would go. And nobody can convince her that it's the wrong thing to do. So just play it out, see where it's going. Okay, yes?
What if you play it out and you know how it's going to end, but then you still want to do that?
Yeah, then you need more self-compassion. It's like, I can't. You have to think, okay, I know where it's going, and I'm attached, which is why I want to do it, and I know it's just not even going in a good place, it could be going in a bad place. Then the thought is, I cannot allow myself to do that to myself. I have to have enough self-care, self-compassion, self-love that I will prevent myself from doing something which is detrimental, because if you do, it's like self-hatred. It's like, why am I going to allow myself to do something which would be destructive just so I can get, 1 day or 2 weeks or 10 seconds of whatever pleasure. When I was in Australia, a devotee was giving a class on addiction, and I wanted, not that I'm addicted to, well, we're all addicted to something, but this is like pornography addiction, substance addiction, and heavy stuff, narcotics, alcohol. And I'm close with him, and this is what he does. It's a profession. I really wanted to hear what he was saying. And in the middle of the talk, he was talking about coping mechanisms. Like, if alcohol is a coping mechanism, it's an unhealthy coping mechanism. And then he said something which astonished me, but it made sense after he said it. I hadn't really thought of it. He said, one of the ways to overcome addiction is through self-love. It's like, wow. I knew self-love was powerful, but I didn't know it was that powerful that it could overcome addiction. So it's something to meditate on. If I were to allow myself to do something that was harmful for me, that means I lack self-love. That means I don't care enough about myself. And if you feel that way, everybody will go through that. Some feel that way more than others. If you feel that way, then you have to ask yourself, why do I feel that way? Like, where in my past did that happen? Or maybe I came into the world that way, I don't know. But where did I get it? And how can I undo it? It can be quite a problem, because we might even feel, here's an interesting thing. I'm not saying you think this way, but it's something possibly we think about. I believe sometimes we do things that we know are going to be harmful because we feel we deserve to suffer, and we're setting ourselves up to suffer, and when we do, we just go, yeah, that's what I deserve. It's, it's subconscious, it's subtle. Otherwise, like, why would we knowingly allow ourselves to suffer unless we maybe in some... What is it? Storm? Don't go outside? Yeah. You wouldn't get that in Florida. This is like a normal day. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. Wow. It's kind of windy out there. Yeah. So now here's a really interesting thing when you come to spiritual life, and I think it may be more prominent in like Catholicism or the Baptist religion. You really are confronted with your sinfulness. Like, you are a sinner, you've sinned, and for your sin, you're going to hell. It's like, okay, that means I'm pretty bad, right? Yeah. You've sinned against God. You deserve to suffer. So that can go in, something can go in that like, I deserve to suffer. So the same thing can happen in any form of spiritual life, because you're going to learn about sin and bad karma and all the bad things you've done. And if you're a good person would think, I've been so bad, I should suffer for my bad. Because any good person would want to, pay a price for the bad things they've done. Of course, spiritual teachings do not say we have to suffer for it, but it's natural we might feel that way. Oh, Krishna, I'm such a rascal. I deserve to suffer. Have you ever said that? Because that's where it could come from. Subtly, like, well, I deserve to suffer. I turned my back on God. I've done so many bad things. It's such a... Everyone who becomes Krishna conscious goes through this. I did so many bad things before I was a devotee. I can't believe I did that. I wish I never would have done that. And maybe the registers, and maybe Krishna's going to smash me on the head with his hammer. He's not. He doesn't have fun doing that. He's not God with the thunderbolt. So I think some of that comes from the Judeo-Christian concept, or just a guilty conscience or whatever. So it could be like some expectation that I should suffer. And maybe, I don't know, this is my theory, maybe it's like we think we should suffer, so we arrange our life at some point where we will suffer, completely subconsciously. I don't doubt that to be true. Just what I know about psychology, I'm pretty sure, at least for some people, I'm not saying you, but for some people, we might do that. But irrespective of whether we do that or not, just the idea that I want to do something that I know is going to turn ugly, or there's a good chance it'll turn ugly. If it doesn't turn ugly, I'd be surprised, like that. Why would I subject myself to that unless there's some level of consciousness within me that just doesn't care or actually wants to see me suffer to get like, okay, I want to get rid, I want to feel better, so I'll suffer, and once I suffer, I go, oh, Krishna, I suffered, so I'm okay now. That definitely doesn't make sense. Or the other thing is like, well, I know this has never worked out well, but this time could be different. Right? So that's when we need intelligence. Now, I have something else to say, which can add another dimension to this. Now, this is a beautiful thought, and I think we all need this thought, because as people practicing spiritual life who weren't born into it, or at least we didn't completely adapt to it, even if we were born into it, we still have material bodies. We're always going to be challenged to some level, because the body wants things that even the mind doesn't want. Do you ever notice that? Like your body wants something, you're like, but I don't even want that. But just the body has needs. It's like, this is weird. So, to understand that matter is matter, and everything material has a limitation. So it doesn't matter what color it is, and how intense it is, and how expensive it was, or how beautiful it was. It's within the limitation of matter. So the enjoyment you can get from it and the subsequent letdown has its limitation. It's still material, and material has a limitation. And I think we forget that. I think, I really want this. This would be so good. This is my life and soul. And say, wait a minute. Just try to understand. You have material experience of so many things. This is within that category. It's not like we think this is going to be something way different. It's not going to be way different. And if you don't believe me, go to Beverly Hills and knock on the door and say, can I ask you a question? Are you happy? And I can answer the question for you, because when I was 16, I worked for a drugstore and used to make deliveries in Beverly Hills, so I can tell you the answer. The answer is the poor Mexicans, I think, were happier. So the reason being is material, and material has limitations. So good material and okay material, there's not like a huge difference in experience of it. And you all know, the other problem is, however good it is, you just get used to it. It's like, wow, that was amazing, but next time it's less amazing. And pretty soon it's like, I got to shoot the heroin to be normal, or whatever your drug of choice is, the skiing down a mountain or whatever. Wow.
So why is it that the poor Mexicans are happier? Because they're not in that tremendous cycle of desires? Because
I think this is.
I was asking myself this in Mexico actually, or I've been contemplating this.
I think for the Mexicans there's a couple of reasons. One, they're more religious, and I think poor people tend to be more compassionate, and if you're more compassionate, you're happier. And I think they're probably more accepting of the situation. But I think maybe one of the most frustrating things is that when you finally get what you want, and then you realize it's not what you want, you're happier if you don't have it, because then you can always think that someday I'll get it and be happier. It's a different culture also. But there are studies that have found that wealthier people are not the happiest people in the world.
There's a threshold.
Yeah.
Of like
from poverty to from
that's
poverty.
Like, after that, there's no.
Yeah, because so it makes my point. I think what it's like, once you're at like, your income is enough to have shelter and food, and you don't have to worry about then anything beyond that increases it minimally. Whereas from like poverty to just when you don't have the stress of worrying about where your next meal comes from, obviously. So, but from a philosophical perspective, we understand this is matter, whether it's green or yellow, black or white. It's still within that, and matter, it does not touch your soul. Matter touches your body, your material senses. So heightened material sense gratification still has its limitations of what it can give you, and it always is going to end up letting you down in some way, because it's not a spiritual activity. So it's a really important realization whenever you think, oh, this is it. No, it's just matter. If I told the story in class the other day. This man became a devotee. He was 35, I think, when he became a devotee. And he told me, he was a brahmachari, and he said, I said, are you going to get married? He said, no. I said, why? He said, I had 35 girlfriends before I was a devotee. So it's probably like 2.5 a year or maybe 15 to 35. Okay, 25 years, 2 a year for 25 years or whatever. And he said, I said, were they different? He said, it was basically the same thing, varieties of the same thing. So when you realize that, I'm sure some of his relationships were better and some were worse, but even the really good ones were it was just a variety of what you could get from that relationship. And so if you've ever gotten it, whatever you want, and it's really great, you realize, well, it's like, okay, it's not really what I wanted. But I need it to satisfy me materially. But that's different than this is everything, Okay, I want to get married, have a nice home, have kids. I need that. The body needs it. The psychology needs it. You have it. You're satisfied. And after you have it, you're like, okay, it was good that I was satisfied. But that's not. It's not like my wife, my husband is not Krishna. They're great. We have a great relationship, but they're not Krishna. It's just like, it's material, and it can satisfy me materially. The love comes from our connection with Krishna, and the matter doesn't have love in it, and that's where the frustration comes. So you have your idea, and you're going to go out and pursue it, but it's not going to produce love, because matter doesn't produce love. Our relation with Krishna produces love, so that's where the frustration comes in. So it's good to remember that. And it's kind of just like it's the same thing, it's just a different color. It looks different, but it's... So we understand that. We also understand I have a body, it has needs. But that's different. Satisfying your needs and thinking this thing is going to make me happy, it's two different states. It's a different consciousness, right? Like, I'm going to eat this meal and it's going to solve all my problems. Obviously not. But I'm going to eat this meal, it's going to satisfy my need to eat and it's going to give me energy. Okay. And if I don't, I'll go crazy. Okay. That's different. Right? So I'm going to do this because this is where I'm at and I need it. But to think this is everything and this is going to fulfill me on the highest level, no, that's where we get sidetracked. Does that make sense? So, I have a nice home, nice family, I'm happy. If I didn't have that, I would be in anxiety. So, it's a nice platform for my spiritual life because I'm not materially in anxiety. If I'm materially in anxiety, it's very difficult to be Krishna conscious. I'll be chanting and just thinking about my anxiety. So I relieve that anxiety, everything's good. Well, we can't relieve all our anxiety, but you know what I'm saying. And then I execute my spiritual life. But I don't think it's the ultimate. And that's one of the biggest problems in relationships. We get in a relationship and think, this relationship will fix every problem I have. It will fulfill every desire I have. And I don't have to do anything. No. Krishna will fix every problem you have and fulfill every desire. This relationship can help you stabilize your life so that you can do that. But if you think that relationship's going to fix everything, it doesn't. It can fix some things, yeah. But the needs we have, these basic needs we have for relationship, affection, family, and so on, sure. But to think it's going to take you beyond that, that's where we get let down. So, I enter a relationship thinking that this is the solution to my problems, I'll be happy, and etc., etc. This huge expectation, right? Doesn't work. You know what Jordan Peterson said? Bhakti Jordan. You know Jordan Peterson? You know him? He's an interesting guy. He said something so interesting. He said, when you have kids, your marriage is about the kids, not about, it's like the primary thing is the kids. It's not like you don't like one another so you're going to leave the kids. No, it's about you do what the kids want. That's, how your grandparents thought. It's not how people think today, right? So what's going on in society today is you analyze it from what we've been talking about is people are putting more and more faith in their happiness is going to come from some sensual pleasure. Which is why it's more difficult to stay in a relationship if you're not getting a high degree of sensual pleasure. Whereas previously, that really wasn't the mentality. It was more like a social stability, right? Especially with your parents or your grandparents for sure. It didn't even matter if it was like a great relationship. It was about the family, right? It was about responsibility, taking care of the kids. So this illusion that I will be happy with this higher level of sense gratification, it permeates society. And then it can make it very difficult to practice spiritual life, and it destroys the social fabric, and therefore there's so much divorce. Right? I don't really like this guy, it's not really working out. Yeah. But if you're Krishna conscious, or you have social responsibility, and you can find your happiness in something deeper, that's not going to be a deal breaker, because you have something deeper. I could see in my life, I could see my karma really, really clearly, because I could see things that are like, oh, this is really good, and Krishna goes, you're not getting it. It's just not your karma in this life to get this. It's like, and it keeps happening all the time, and I keep saying, it goes, no, not that. And at a certain point, there must be stars there that just says, your level of happiness from this is going to be here. I say, but if I just had this and that, and this and that, it would be up here. And Krishna says, yeah, maybe, but you're not going to get it. And it completely, totally does not affect me at all, because my happiness is coming from my spiritual life. So this, if it's here or here, it really doesn't make a difference. If it's an orange for breakfast or a banana, I'll live through it, even though I like bananas better. But it's not going to change my life. So it's like that. So when you have that spiritual stability, then these other things, it's like, whatever, it's kind of here, here, here. It doesn't really affect you, because over here, you're up here. Does that make sense? That's my personal experience. And it's very clear. As I'd seen so many things, I go, this is going to be good. And Krishna goes, not for you.
Give an example. Besides the rock band.
Too embarrassing to give an example.
Okay.
But how could I give an example? It's going to be in the terms of the things we want, which is money, fame, sex. What else is there to get? That's about it, right? In terms of those things, like opportunities for those things, like more of it, better of it. I was like, oh, it's going to happen? No, not in this life. Not for you. It doesn't matter. I see all of it. Well, sometimes it's not that it doesn't matter. Now, as a devotee, it's like, well, it's good I didn't get it, because it could have been a disaster. But even getting it to use in Krishna's service, it's like, you get a certain amount, and then beyond that, it's like you can try, but it's like, boom, it's like you'll hit a threshold, and Krishna's like, that's all you're getting, but that's not where your happiness is. It doesn't matter. When it matters, you're going to get frustrated, because someone's going to have more, and it's going to make you unhappy. But if you're satisfied in spiritual life, this is like, it's not that important. It's just, it's just this world karmically. But your spiritual life's up here, and you're happy there. And if you get this together, then you can go up here. But if this is a problem, you're trying to go beyond your threshold, this will suffer. You'll put energy into that and minimize this. And this is what's going to make you happy, not this. This give you some material satisfaction, but even then, you have your karma, so it's limited. Like how much you'll get. How big your house is, how great your relationships are, how much money, they have limitations. And so if you're basing your happiness on that, it's going to be difficult, because you might get it and you might not. And if you do get it and you're super happy, then what happens? When your husband cheats on you, it's like kills you, right? Or your wife. So, everything's in flux. If that's where your happiness lies, it's like, wow, that's a very tenuous position to live in. But when it lies in Krishna, it's always there. You can, any moment, right? So many, many people come to Krishna consciousness and they leave it and they pursue, again, material life, and then later they come back and they realize, yeah, this is where my happiness is. I left it, I tried to find it there, it didn't work, they come back. So why leave in the first place? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hare Hare.